Hi, this is Novysynth, and I'm going to show you how I created my song KS1 coming up next. Well, hello. Let's see what we did for my song KS1. It's kind of a very simplistic song, in all honesty, and that was deliberate, so I could show you what would happen here. But basically, we've got some sounds already set up. So on the Arturia Keystep, I've got in Ableton, I've loaded a thing from Roli Studio Player. It's actually an Equator 2 sound called Whirly Trying to Find a Way Home, and it sounds like this. Really nice sound. On the Deepmind 12, that's taking over strings duty. It's really good at doing strings, and we've got another stock sound from that, which is in Bank H32 on a standard one, and that's called Lost Verb, and it sounds like this. And then finally on the Novation Summit, I've got a lead sound set up, which again is a stock sound. It's on the dual mode, and it's only one side of the dual we're going to need. It's called Boarding Canada, and it sounds like this. There is another sound on that, which is a bass. On the split of the keyboard, we won't be using the bass side of it. So, in essence, the song is very simple. It's just a 6-chord progression. It's all in the key of C sharp minor. The first chord is C sharp minor itself, but sus4 version, so it sounds like this. The second chord we're going to do then is A major, followed by B major, then back to C sharp minor sus. Then it's 2 minor ones. We're going to do, let's see, we're gonna do G sharp minor first, and then we're gonna do F sharp minor second. So it's going to sound altogether something like this. Now, the other thing that I'm going to add to that, mind you, is a bass note on each one. So at the moment we're doing triads in effect, so we're going to make it, so we're going to add an extra bass note onto it. And that is, in essence, the whole song is just that, really. What we're going to do is sequence it. Now, we're going to cheat a little bit. Instead of having to sequence in each of the whole chords into the Arturia Keystep, what I'm going to do is actually in Roli Studios, we can actually turn on chord mode, and the C sharp I want to be sus4, so we can change that chord here. All the others I'm happy to be triads. And we just need to add a bass note, so I can click that. There we go. What that means is when I press a single key now on the key step, the Roli Studio Player will turn that into a complete chord. So it just makes it so much easier. So, 6 chords on the sequencer. What I want to do with the sequencer, I've set it up so the Arturia is going to be the lead clock as well. So it's running at 100 beats per minute. On the sequencer, we can have up to 64 steps. We're actually just going to go up to 48. What we're going to do is 3 lots of 16. And I want the first chord to play on the first note of each 16 steps of the sequence. and to last for 16 steps. So actually we need twice as many as 48 steps in that instance. And what I've already done, I've set it up so we're on page 1 of 16 steps. That's page 2, page 3 of 16 steps. So page 1, the first note I've set to be this note, and in the gate I've said hold that key for 16 steps. So it's going to play that chord for 16 steps. Then we go to page 2 and it'll play the second chord for 16 steps. Page 3, the third chord for 16 steps. That's on sequence 1 on this green channel. On sequence 2 then, I've done exactly the same, but with the next 3 chords of the sequence. So obviously returning to that C sharp, minor, sus4, and then go into our next chord and our next chord, again holding each chord for all 16 steps of the sequence. To get the first sequence and the second sequence just to continually play one after the other, what we have to do is chain those sequences together. So we hit chain, press 1 followed by 2. There's 2 patterns in the chain, and it'll just continually play pattern 1, then pattern 2, back to pattern 1, then pattern 2, etc. until we tell it to stop. It'll just keep doing that forever. So that is the core of the song done, and I'll just play that for you now so you see how that works. Just shift that so you can see the sequence of working through the pages. And let's go to the second sequence. We can hit stop on that, very straightforward. The actual rest of the song is just pulling through from that. So I want the Deepmind 12 to actually play those same chords, but an octave higher. So the way we do that is in Ableton. If I just shrink that down, we need to insert a second MIDI track. And in this MIDI track, we need to take the in and let's see. We need to take it from Roli Studio Player, and the important bit, it needs to be post effects, because what that's going to do, that is going to take it, if we didn't have it post effects, it'd just be taking the 1 notes that are being fed to the studio player from here and not take the full chord. We want it to take the full chord that Roli Studio Player is creating. We're going to put that as in, and on the output we're going to send that to the Deepmind 12 on channel 1, because that's what MIDI channel the Deepmind's set to by default, and I haven't changed it. So now when we press play, we won't just hear the Whirly Roads in Space, we'll hear the Deepmind as well. We'll just check that's working. Yeah, it isn't quite, because we're not getting the chords, we're only getting single notes. My mistake, I think we have to make it post Roli Studio Player on here. Let's just try that again. Yeah, that's working. You can't see it from here, but I can see the lights on the Deepmind 12. It tells me how many notes are being played on it, and it's showing 4 lights each time. Plus you can hear it if I turn the volume up. That's now working, but there's still a problem with it because it's playing it in the same octave, and I wanted it to be brighter. So what we need to do, again, we can do that via Ableton. If we go into MIDI effects and we go into the pitch menu, and we can just double click while we've got the MIDI track that's playing the Deepmind, we can just double click on +12 and it will knock it up an octave. Let's give that a listen. Yeah, that's much better. Okay, so it's all fairly straightforward at the moment, and we're going to do pretty much the same thing to the Summit. So again, we're going to insert another MIDI track. We're going to take the notes from the Roli MIDI player, and we're going to send them to the Summit. Now, the slight difference this time, because I've got the Summit set on one of its dual kind of voices is the wrong word, dual timbral settings, where it's got a bass and it's got a lead, and I'm only interested in using the lead. When you do that, if you send anything to MIDI channel 1, it plays both the bass and the lead and gives them both the same notes. If you give it MIDI channel 2, it'll do just the bass, and if you give it MIDI channel 3, it'll give it to the lead sound. So we're just going to change the channel in Ableton to MIDI channel 3. And let's just, again, add the +12. And then let's see if we can hear that. It's going to sound a bit weird because this sound is a lead sound. It doesn't really like chords, but let's see if we can hear anything. Yeah, you can hear it there when I turn down the volume on the other side. It's working, that's fine. So, I've sent the chord to the Summit, but why have I done that when we only want one single? Well, what I want to do is put an arpeggiation on the Summit. Now, it's interesting, one of the things that you may have spotted, I'm using 4 notes for each chord by adding that extra bass note, and I've done 16 steps in between each chord. That's deliberate because they're divisible. 16 divides by 4 quite nicely. And we'll go over to the Summit now, and I'll show you how I'm going to set up the arpeggiator on the Summit. Okay, so over on the Summit here, what I need to do is set up the arpeggiation section, which is here. By default, the patch will have some settings of its own, and these knobs won't necessarily represent what's in the patch, so you always have to kind of reset them. So for the rhythm, I just want it to be a basic rhythm, which is type 1, so I'll just change that back to that. The gate is probably okay on its default as 64. The tempo will come back to, actually. The octave, now this is where it gets a little bit interesting. I'm actually going to set it to 3 octaves. I'll explain what that does in a minute. And then for the type, I just want it to go up initially. Okay, now at the moment, the Summit is going to receive its clock speed via Ableton, which is receiving it via the Keystep Pro. So it's going to come in at 100 beats per minute. I don't actually want this arpeggiation to run that quickly. I want it to run at half speed. So what I need to do is kind of disassociate the Summit from the clock that it's receiving via MIDI. So to do that, if we go to Arp Clock, it's got source as auto. So if I change that to internal, and then I go to that one, and let's just change that. So we've got it on internal. Now I can change the speed right down to 50 beats per minute. So it's going to run at half speed. Now, do you remember I was saying we had 4 notes? 4 over 16 is obviously 4 times. If it was running at the same speed, this would arpeggiate 4 times in between each chord. But because of half the speed, it'll now go through, basically arpeggiate the notes twice. But I've set my octaves to 3. So what it's going to do is play the notes, the 4 notes of the chord in ascending order, going up, 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 up twice. And the second time will be at a octave higher than the first time. It's going to, before it gets a chance to go to a 3rd octave, to go a 2nd octave higher, in other words, the next chord's going to be struck, so it's going to restart again. So you're going to have a kind of, let's see, something like if we took that first one, it's going to be something like this. It's going to go up 2, that's what it's going to do. It's not going to go to the 3rd, even though I've set it to 3, because the next chord will start and it'll play that one next. So it'll go through that once and then play the next chord once at 2 octaves, if that makes sense. So you might ask, well, why have I set it to 3? The reason I've set it to 3, partway through, what I want to do is twist this knob and put it to down instead of up for our kind of half-baked chorus, if you like. Now, what that's going to end up doing when I change the arpeggiation mode from up to down, it's going to start at the highest note and work backwards. Well, it's going to start at the highest note 2 octaves higher than our current note and play them in descending order. But an octave up again. So it's going to be, and it's only going to do, so it's going to go, if you like, our main one's going to be the octave we're on plus an octave higher, and then our chorus working backwards is going to be 2 octaves higher to an octave higher and never get to the bass octave. And that's the idea we'd have in this at 3. One thing we must remember to do is actually switch the arpeggiator on, of course, and then we'll run our sequence and see if it works. That's going up. And in a minute, I'll switch it to going down. Nicely. Another thing that I'll want to do as part of a performance is kind of open and close the filter. So let's listen to that. If I close the filter completely, you probably won't even hear the arpeggiation. And then open it slowly. Pretty much the song. I haven't shown you how the East West Hollywood choirs that I added onto it works. We'll do that in another video. It needs a little bit of explaining that one a bit longer. So we'll do that in its own video. At some point I'll show you how these are all connected to show you how physically, you know, the signals are getting back into to each synthesizer, and how to connect them up into Ableton as well. Thanks a lot. Cheers. Bye.